Popular social media app TikTok. Discussion about how to handle the app in Iowa is picking up momentum.
Right now, only one state has a full ban on TikTok, Montana. That state's governor signed the ban into law last month. At the time, Governor Greg Gianforte tweeted he banned TikTok in Montana, quote, to protect Montanans' personal and private data from the Chinese Communist Party, end quote. Local lawmakers say something must be done to protect minors at a minimum, with some calling for a full ban like the one in Montana. KTIV's Matt Hoffman reports.
The Iowa legislature was already winding down its session when the discussion about TikTok was ramping up. The app is banned on government devices in all three Siouxland states, but some lawmakers would go much further and totally ban the app when the legislative session begins in January.
In this case, I'd say take it off the table for now. The argument's been made that there's other platforms as well that will share some information, but those are not affiliated with another government or another country, if you will.
Others take a wait-and-see approach, trying to balance First Amendment concerns with securing Iowans' data. With 6 more months before the legislative session begins in Des Moines, lawmakers have a lot of time to plan their next move.
I know we've talked to our IT department with the state, and they have concerns, but they're not quite willing to point a finger or red flag at something yet.
One Sioux City lawmaker is concerned about the impact social media has on young people. He thinks there may be bipartisan support for raising the age minors can access social media and strengthening protections for their data. But he's skeptical of the idea that lawmakers can legislate away TikTok.
At the end of the day, I view that social media platforms have a tremendous amount of power right now, both with what they're able to do, but also what they're able to limit as a society.
Ultimately, all three lawmakers said it will be up to parents and individuals to decide which apps they're okay with and what types of data they're okay with giving up. In Sioux City, Matt Hoffman, KTIV News 4.
In all, 34 states have announced or enacted bans on the use of TikTok by state government agencies, employees, and contractors who use government-issued devices. The state bans only affect government employees. They don't prevent civilians from having or using the app on their personal devices.
All three of the lawmakers we spoke with acknowledged it might be easier if Congress set concrete rules for the use of TikTok rather than each state. Here's U.S. Senator Chuck Grassley of Iowa, who supports a ban on TikTok in the United States.
We can't let China get the information on private American citizens or anything that gives China information that might give them a heads up on our national security.
Traffic is flowing once again this evening through Sioux City.